Money is not the same as happiness. The real question is not how do I make more. The real question is how much is enough, and what am I actually buying with my life? Most people cannot answer that honestly. They earn. They spend. They hope something is left over. Then they are surprised when it is not. It is not recklessness. It is unconsciousness. It is death by 1,000 small purchases they barely remember making. The biggest drain on wealth is not the obvious luxury splurge. It is lifestyle inflation. You get a raise, and suddenly the nicer apartment feels necessary. The better car seems justified. The premium subscriptions become standard. Your expenses quietly rise to meet your income. And you are no more secure than before. You are simply performing at a higher price point. Here is the shift that changes everything. Every purchase is a trade. Money represents hours of your life. Focus, effort, stress, time away from people you love. When you buy something, you are exchanging a portion of your finite life for that object or experience. So ask yourself clearly, is this worth 8 hours of my life? Is that convenience worth 2 full days? Is that impulse buy worth the time I spent earning it? Most people look at price tags, not life tags. They think in dollars, not in days. And over decades, they sell years of their existence for things they do not even own anymore. Financial wisdom begins with 3 honest questions. What do I actually need? What do I truly value? And what am I buying to fill a void that money cannot fill? Because if you look closely, most spending is emotional. It soothes anxiety. It tries to impress others. It attempts to purchase an identity instead of building one through character and skill. The practice is simple but confronting. Track every dollar for 1 month. Every transaction. No judgment. Just data. Then sort it into categories: essentials, values, aligned, emotional, spending, waste. The result will surprise you. Not because you are bad with money, but because you have been unconscious with it. Debt is borrowed time. When you are in debt, you are committing future hours of your life to past decisions. You are mortgaging tomorrow for yesterday. And the interest is not just financial. It is psychological. It is the stress you carry, the risks you cannot take, the opportunities you decline because you cannot afford uncertainty. Building wealth is not about deprivation. It is about intention. It is about fully funding what matters and eliminating what does not. It is about creating enough margin that you are not living in constant survival mode. Enough savings that you can think clearly, choose freely, walk away if necessary. The goal is not retirement at some distant age. It is autonomy now. The ability to say no to what drains you and yes to what aligns with your values. Financial security is not luxury. It is dignity. Every financial decision is a life decision. You are voting with your dollars for the existence you want. Many people are unknowingly funding stress, distraction, and habits that weaken them. Start treating money for what it truly is: concentrated life energy. Spend it with intention. This is Stoicism Breath, and this is how you reclaim control over your future. Now let us look at something even more subtle: life-draining habits. You have daily rituals you have never named. Patterns you repeat without questioning. Behaviors so automatic you barely notice them. These are not dramatic addictions. Not the obvious destructive behaviors. These are socially acceptable habits. The ones everyone has. The ones hidden in plain sight because they are normalized. They do not destroy your life overnight. They erode it slowly, quietly, until one day the foundation feels cracked and you cannot explain why. The Stoic insight is uncomfortable but powerful. Most of what you do each day is not a conscious choice. It is repetition. And repetition becomes identity. Think about how often you reach for your phone without intention. How often you scroll when you feel uncomfortable. How often you snack not because you are hungry, but because you are bored or stressed. Research shows that habits form through cue routine reward loops. Once established, they run automatically with minimal conscious effort. Your brain loves efficiency. But efficiency without awareness can lead you far from the life you actually want. Ask yourself, what behaviors am I repeating that drain my energy, my focus, my health? What small daily actions are shaping a future I would not consciously choose? Because habits compound. A small distraction repeated daily becomes years of lost focus. A small indulgence repeated nightly becomes chronic fatigue. The damage is not dramatic. It is cumulative. The solution is not shame. It is awareness. Start by naming the habit. Interrupt the loop. Replace it with something that aligns with who you want to become. Even small adjustments create momentum. Because just as negative habits compound, so do positive ones. Your life is built in the invisible moments, in the tiny repeated choices. Protect those, and you protect your future. Most of what you do each day is not a conscious decision. It is inherited. Patterns passed down from family, from peers, from a culture that quietly profits from your distraction and your numbness. You have repeated these behaviors for so long they feel like your personality. But they are not you. They are grooves worn deep by repetition. Complaining is one of those habits. It feels harmless. It feels like venting. You talk about the traffic, the weather, the economy, your job, your family. But complaining without action is rehearsing victimhood. You are training your brain to scan for what is wrong. Neuroscience shows that the brain strengthens the pathways it uses most. Spend 10 minutes complaining, and you have just completed 10 minutes of negativity training. Over time, your baseline mood lowers. Nothing improves except your capacity to feel dissatisfied. Waiting is another silent habit. Waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, the perfect plan. You tell yourself you will start when conditions are right. But perfect never arrives. So you keep preparing, keep planning, keep thinking. Years pass while you wait for a starting signal that does not exist. The real cost is not only missed opportunities. It is the identity you build. You become someone who is always about to begin, but never actually in motion. Your life turns into a permanent rehearsal for a show that never opens. Seeking validation is a habit too. Posting for approval. Working for recognition. Making choices based on what others will think. Each compliment, each promotion gives a short burst of satisfaction. Then it fades. And you need another hit. Over time, your self-worth becomes outsourced to metrics you cannot control. You cannot feel steady without applause. You cannot decide without consensus. That is not freedom. That is performance. And the performance never truly satisfies. Then there is numbing. Not necessarily with substances, but with busyness, noise, and constant stimulation. You avoid silence because in silence uncomfortable thoughts appear. Doubts, regrets, unanswered questions. So you keep the volume high, keep scrolling, keep consuming. But numbing is not selective. When you numb discomfort, you also numb joy. Presence becomes impossible. You skim the surface of your own life because you are afraid to dive deeper. And years pass in that shallow state. Comparison is another draining pattern. Measuring your success, your appearance, your timeline against someone else. You turn life into a competition with people who are not even competing with you. They are just living. You are the one keeping score. Psychologically, comparison almost guarantees dissatisfaction. You compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. Your chapter 3 to their chapter 15. The equation will never feel fair. Here is the practice. For 1 week, do not try to fix anything. Just observe. When do you complain? When do you delay? When do you seek validation? When do you numb? When do you compare? Awareness must come before change. You cannot break a pattern you refuse to see. Many of your most draining habits are invisible because they are your default setting. Once you see them clearly, you gain the power to choose differently. Not perfectly, not overnight, but consciously, one decision at a time. This is Stoicism Breath, and this is how self-mastery begins. Now we arrive at something simple yet profound. Treasure the quiet moments. There is a kind of poverty that has nothing to do with money. It is the poverty of presence. Rushing through your days so quickly that you miss the experience of being alive. Modern culture teaches you to optimize everything, to maximize productivity, to extract value from every minute. But life is not a factory. It is an experience. Think about the last time you sat in silence without reaching for your phone. The last time you watched the sunset without trying to capture it. The last time you had a conversation without multitasking. These quiet moments are not wasted time. They are where meaning accumulates. Research shows that moments of reflection improve emotional regulation and increase overall well-being. Silence allows your nervous system to reset. It gives your mind space to integrate experience instead of constantly chasing the next input. If you are always racing, you may achieve more but feel less. And what is the point of achievement if you cannot feel your own life? Slow down enough to notice small details. The warmth of sunlight on your skin. The sound of your own breathing. The presence of someone sitting across from you. These are not trivial. They are the texture of existence. Your life will not be measured only by milestones. It will be measured by moments. The quiet ones especially. Protect them. Create them intentionally. Because in those spaces you are not performing. You are not proving. You are simply being. And that is where real richness lies. You have optimized your mornings. You measure your workdays. You schedule quality time. On the surface, it looks responsible, disciplined, productive. But somewhere along the way you turned living into a performance metric. And in doing that you lost access to something essential: unstructured existence. The Stoic practice is not about squeezing more into your day. It is about inhabiting the moment you are already in. Without agenda. Without improvement. Without the pressure for it to become something impressive. Just existence. Pure and simple. Yet for many adults, silence feels uncomfortable. Stillness feels like laziness. Doing nothing triggers anxiety because worth has become tied to productivity. So every gap gets filled. Every pause colonized by something useful. A podcast. A scroll. A quick email. But what you are missing is profound. Quiet moments are where integration happens. Where your nervous system resets. Where experiences turn into understanding. Without space, you are just collecting information you never convert into wisdom. Think about the last time you sat and did absolutely nothing. No phone. No book. No background noise. Just you and whatever thoughts surfaced. For many people, it has been months or even years. That absence has a cost. When you never pause, you become disconnected from yourself. You do not know what you truly think because you never give yourself room to think it. You do not know what you feel because you override emotion with activity. You do not know who you are because you are constantly performing the next role. Quiet moments are not empty. They are full. Full of subtle details you have been too busy to notice. The texture of air. The way light shifts across a room. The rhythm of your breathing. The thoughts that rise when you stop drowning them in noise. Creativity research consistently shows that breakthrough ideas often appear during low stimulation moments, while walking, showering, or resting. When the mind is relaxed and not gripping, your best insights rarely arrive in frantic hustle. They emerge in space. But you have minimized these moments because they do not look productive. So here is a radical practice: protect uselessness. Intentionally schedule time with no goal, no measurable outcome. Time where you are not learning, not networking, not optimizing. Just being a human being. Sit on your porch and watch the sky change. Take a slow walk without headphones. Listen to the world without labeling it. Resistance will show up. Your mind will tell you this is wasteful, that you should be doing something more important. Recognize that voice. It is conditioning. A culture that profits from your constant output taught you that rest equals weakness. But quiet moments are where perspective returns, where urgency fades, and what truly matters becomes visible, where you reconnect with the part of you that exists beyond titles, beyond achievements, beyond performance. Children understand this instinctively. They can watch a bug for 20 minutes fully absorbed with no agenda, no productivity, just curiosity. That capacity is not childish. It is alive. And you still have it. You just buried it under schedules and metrics. Reclaiming quiet is not about escaping life. It is about entering it more fully. This is Stoicism Breath, and this is how you remember that you are not a machine designed for output. You are a human being designed for experience. On this channel, Stoicism Breath, we talk about presence not as a trend, but as a return to something you once knew naturally. Think about a child staring at a bug for 20 minutes, completely absorbed, no agenda, no productivity, no outcome to report. Then slowly we train that out of them. We teach them to be busy, to be useful, to measure their worth by output. And somewhere along the way they lose the ability to simply exist. Maybe you did too. But you can reclaim it. Not by adding another habit to your already crowded routine. Not by downloading another app or optimizing your morning. You reclaim it by subtracting. By creating space that is not for anything. By remembering you are not a productivity machine. You are a conscious human being having a temporary experience on this planet. And that experience is supposed to include stillness, quiet, moments that will never appear on your resume, but might save your mental health and maybe even your soul. So stop running. Stop filling every gap. Stop proving. Just be. Even if it is 5 minutes today. 5 minutes with no phone, no music, no task. Just you breathing and noticing. Research in neuroscience shows that when the brain is at rest, the default mode network becomes active. That is the network linked to self-reflection, memory integration, and creativity. In other words, when you stop doing, your brain actually starts processing. If stillness scares you, that is not a weakness. That is a signal. It means you have been avoiding something. And that is exactly why you need it. Now let this number sit with you. 13 years. Studies on time use patterns suggest the average person loses more than 13 years of life to empty consumption. Not true rest. Not meaningful leisure. But mindless scrolling, repetitive distractions, unconscious habits. 13 years is 156 months. Over 4,700 days. Gone. If you live to 80, you have around 29,000 days. Subtract the years you sleep, which your body needs. Subtract the early childhood years before real autonomy. You are left with roughly 15,000 conscious adult days to build relationships, to create something meaningful, to become who you are capable of being. And nearly 4,000 of those days disappear into patterns that add no lasting value. The Stoic perspective is clear and direct. You will die, not as an abstract idea, but as a real event. And when that moment comes, you will not wish you had spent more time refreshing feeds or proving your worth. You will wish for more moments when you felt fully alive. The powerful truth is those 13 years are not in the past. They are being spent right now. Every unconscious day adds to the total. This is where most people feel overwhelmed. 13 years sounds impossible to reclaim. So they do nothing. But you do not reclaim 13 years at once. You reclaim 1 hour, then another. Small decisions compound. One evening without mindless consumption. One morning of intentional quiet. One honest conversation. Over time, those hours reshape a life. Ask yourself honestly, what would you do with 13 extra years? Would you build a business that reflects your values? Learn an instrument? Travel across the country? Be more present with your partner or your children? Write the book you keep postponing? Whatever your answer is, that is what your current patterns are quietly trading away. Transformation does not start with motivation. It starts with radical honesty. Look at your actual days, not the story you tell about them. Where is your time going? What are you unconsciously choosing? Because your life is not built in grand dramatic moments. It is built in ordinary hours. Protect your stillness. Guard your attention. Reclaim 1 hour today. And then do it again tomorrow. On Stoicism Breath, we do not talk about someday. We talk about your actual life as it is right now. Not the version you plan to live when things calm down. Not the dream you keep postponing. Your real daily existence. If you were lying on your deathbed reviewing your life, how much of what you are doing today would you be proud to remember? How much of it is building towards something that truly matters to you? For most people, the honest answer is uncomfortable. Maybe 20% of their time goes to what they genuinely value. The other 80% disappears into obligation, distraction, avoidance, performance, and autopilot. That is where the 13 years are hiding. Not in dramatic failures, but in ordinary, unexamined days. Here is a practice that can change everything. Before you say yes to a commitment, before you spend an hour scrolling or agreeing to something you already resent, pause and apply what we call the deathbed filter. Ask yourself one simple question. If I were dying and looking back at my life, would I be glad I gave my time to this? Not guilty if I said no. Not afraid of disappointing someone, but genuinely glad. When you apply that filter honestly and consistently, most of what steals your life falls away. The draining relationships, the habits that numb you, the busy work that makes you look productive but leaves you empty. This is not about perfection. You will still waste time. You will still have days that slip through your fingers. But awareness changes the ratio. Instead of losing 80% of your life to unconscious patterns, maybe you lose 40, then 20, then 10. Every percentage point you reclaim is months of your life returned to you. Months that become real memories instead of blank spaces. Research on behavioral change shows that small, consistent shifts in daily habits create exponential results over time. 1 hour a day reclaimed equals more than 15 full days a year. Over a decade, that is nearly half a year of conscious living restored. You cannot stop time. You cannot buy more of it. You cannot negotiate with mortality. But you can stop wasting what you have. You can treat your days like the limited resource they are. The 13 years are not a life sentence. They are a warning. And warnings only matter if you listen. If you are still here, that already says something. Most people would have clicked away, back to the very patterns we just exposed. But you stayed. That is awareness. And awareness is the first step. Now comes the second step. Action. Remember what we have uncovered together. Time is not neutral. Your body keeps the receipts of stress and neglect. Relationships either nourish you or drain you. Stagnation often hides behind the illusion of stability. Money represents your life energy. Unconscious habits quietly steal years. Stillness restores what busyness destroys. And 13 years of your life are at stake right now. These are not motivational slogans. They are tools. But tools only work if you use them. Nothing changes if this becomes just another video you consumed. Change begins with one decision. One boundary. One pattern interrupted. 1 hour reclaimed today. The ancient Stoics wrote about these truths while facing exile, loss, and death. They understood that life is short and easily wasted. They left a map not to comfort but to clarity, to living deliberately instead of drifting unconsciously. Your 13 years are not waiting in the future. They are hidden in the patterns you will either continue tonight or break. In the awareness you will either act on or ignore. In the choice right in front of you. So start small, but start now. Do one thing differently today. Protect 1 hour. Say no once. Sit in silence for 5 minutes. Have the honest conversation you have been avoiding. That is how you take your life back. The clock is running. Make it count. And let this be your affirmation. I choose my life.